All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to chatting with you about a topic that is very important in many regards, but also very close to my heart. So, I'm going to begin by telling you a little bit about myself. I have been practicing martial arts since I was about 12, and most of those years I've been training in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Now, in this sport, we wear a uniform that we grab to maintain positions and secure different moves. And this is relevant because I'd like to tell you an anecdote about when I was training a few years ago. I partnered up with a man that I didn't know very well, and we got started, and he grabbed a sleeve grip. And my sleeve rode up my arm a little bit, and he saw the scars that are across both of my wrists. And he looked at me and he said, "What'd you try to kill yourself or something?" And I thought, this is not what I need right now. I don't even know how to reply to this, but I reminded myself that there is so much stigma around suicide that people are awkward and unsure around those conversations. And I tried to have compassion for his lack of understanding and compassion for myself in terms of not seeing what I've been through as a failure or a shortcoming, but seeing it as obstacles that I've overcome. And so when I think about that, when I think of those moments where people approach me about what I feel are the ugliest parts of me that I wear carved into my outsides. It's literally my insides coming out for everyone to see. And I have to find self compassion because suicide is something that is more common than we think. Suicidal thoughts are present in more people than we would imagine. And if we're not open to those conversations, the people who need support will not be able to seek it and to reach out for it for fear that they'll be considered weak, or again, that it will be a failure or a personal shortcoming. And so that's why I really wear my experience on my sleeve, and I'm so vulnerable and open about what I've been through because it helps people understand better and it helps them feel less alone if it's something that they've experienced. The last time that I tried to kill myself, I needed 14 stitches. And the time before that, I was in a coma for almost a week. Now, when I go and speak in middle and high schools about mental health and share my story with the students and teach them tools and strategies to manage their own mental well being, I usually start by going up in front of the audience of 300 kids and I say, "Do I look like a crazy person?" And they usually giggle a little bit and will tell me no, because to them, I look like I could be any number of their teachers, school social workers, anything like that. And what that helps them to realize is that the face of mental illness and the face of suicidal thoughts or suicidal ideation is really anybody. It can look like anybody. Anyone can experience these obstacles, these difficulties and challenges, and we need to be mindful of that compassion and that destigmatizing piece, to have open and honest conversations. And that's what I really try to do. I try to give the experiences I've had positive meaning and purpose so that I can use them not as something I've been through that was tremendously difficult, but something that I can use for me to grow as a person and for other people to understand better as well. And so that's been a huge passion for me is utilizing those experiences to try to combat stigma. It's something that has been very difficult because I have a lot of internalized stigma. I judge myself for what I've been through. I blame myself. I feel shame. I feel that it is a flaw in character rather than literally a medical condition, considering that I live with two mental illnesses. And suicidal thoughts can come from a number of stressors that somebody might experience in their life. It's not necessarily related to a diagnosable mental health illness or disorder. And we need to remember that life is hard and people struggle. And there's no weakness in saying, I cannot do this alone. And that's why I share my story in hopes that people will know that help is there for them to reach out to should they need it. When it comes to combating stigma, the biggest tool that we have against stigma is really our voice, our words, our ability to speak out, to be vulnerable, to be open and honest about the things that we experience. Now, think about this for a second. How many times today already have you been asked the question, "How are you?" Probably more than you can remember. And how many times did you answer honestly? How many times did you say, I'm fine, how are you? And you know deep down that something is going on. You're feeling something, something is difficult, or maybe something is great. And we just use that perfunctory fine, that neutral word, so that we don't have to delve into emotions with one another. It's almost like this social dance that we do before we can get to the productive part of the conversation, where we don't truly listen to the answer because we're afraid to be made uncomfortable, not only by our own feelings, but by those of others as well. And so we shy away from it and we hesitate. But a conversation is where it all starts, breaking down that stigma, being able to have open and honest conversations. Research has shown that asking someone directly if they are thinking of suicide will actually decrease the chances of them going through with an attempt. Keep that in mind. Many people believe that bringing up suicide might put ideas in someone's head, might give them the thought when they didn't have it prior, or might stress them further. But really, it's like releasing a pressure valve. If you ask someone directly, point blank, are you thinking of ending your life? You're probably the first person that has ever asked them that question. And it's going to feel like they can finally get a weight off their chest when they say, oh, yes, yes, I have been thinking about it. And that's where providing support and help starts, when we can have that honesty and we say those first words of, yes, I'm feeling suicidal. Yes, I'm thinking of ending my life. And all you have to do in that moment is be open, empathetic, and compassionate. There is nothing wrong with saying, I'm not even sure what to say right now, but I'm so thankful that you told me and you're not in this alone. That's where it all starts. So if you feel intimidated, scared, a little bit cautious around the topic, but you feel that somebody in your life might be thinking of suicide or feeling that they have suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, don't hesitate in having that conversation. And remember that connection and support is really the biggest thing that we can do for someone in that position. We don't need to be mental health practitioners, we don't need to be professionals. We just need to be there with empathy and with compassion and the ability to hold space for that difficult conversation. Are we going to fix in one moment, one word, one conversation, somebody's thoughts of ending their life? Are we going to convince them otherwise? No. When somebody thinks of suicide, they are in an extremely dark place. I can tell you from personal experience, I feel like the choice to go through with a suicide attempt, it is a choice. It absolutely is. I would never blame anyone for the choices that I've made, although stressors and circumstances certainly did influence those situations. I would never blame a person for the choice that I made. However, in those moments, it felt like there wasn't a choice. The psychological, emotional, mental pain was just such of a magnitude that I couldn't bear it, I couldn't manage it, and I didn't feel like I would survive it. And that's why I made the choice in that moment to try to end my life. And when somebody is in a place that dark, the most that we can offer them is connection, support, and validating that they're in a very painful, difficult place right now. If we jump, like we are so good at doing in so many circumstances, directly to solutions, let me fix it. Here's what we're going to do. Let's talk about the next steps. Not only can that be extremely overwhelming for someone who's feeling suicidal, but it can also be unhelpful. We need to first feel the emotions that we're experiencing in any context before we can process them and then move forward with how we're going to deal with them and deal with the situation. And for someone who's feeling suicidal, the same applies. They're going to want someone who can hold space for them as they tell you how dark things are, how difficult and painful things are, how it feels like there's no climbing out, how it feels like there's no way out of it, there's no way they can go on, all of those really dark, difficult thoughts. We have to prepare ourselves to be emotionally in discomfort as we're faced with those painful feelings of someone we care about. That's where the conversation starts. Of course, we need to keep in mind emergency steps that might need to be taken. If somebody's life is actively in danger, then that is going to be a call to emergency services or a crisis team, whatever the resources might be in your area. We need to be prepared if there's any immediate threat to handle that and keep the person alive. However, it starts with a gentle, compassionate conversation, exploring what has led them to being in that place. And that's where the destigmatization comes in. We cannot be reacting to these conversations with shock, with judgment, telling someone they have so much to live for, telling someone that whoever in their life will be extremely hurt and sad and think of who they're leaving behind. These things are not helpful. They're putting shame and guilt on the person who already does not feel good about themselves for being in a position where this feels like the choice they have to make. It is a scary topic. Absolutely. And if you remember what I shared with you originally about that man who lifted up my sleeves and saw my scars, his question was awkward and uncomfortable and rude. But the reason is he didn't know how else to handle it. He wasn't ready for the discomfort of being in difficult, challenging feelings with someone. And that's okay. We weren't that close. We didn't know each other very well. It doesn't have to be his place to be there for me. But that comment alone, the way that he asked me that question, what, did you try to kill yourself or something? He came at it with stigma and with judgment and with a right away a marker of him not being comfortable with that conversation. When people ask about my scars and they want to understand, they want to support, they want to know, they want to learn, they want to get it better, I am always open to a conversation. I am an open book if it is asked respectfully. And that is because I really want to teach others to be more tolerant and compassionate and to help others feel less alone if they felt that way as well. Suicide, like I said, is a very scary, daunting topic, and we often shy away from it. I had a client recently who asked for a presentation about mental health for their team. This was a corporate client. And I explained that suicide is something that I talk about very readily because it is more applicable than we think, and it is more relevant to people's lives than we would imagine. And I decided that client was not my ideal client because they asked me to avoid that topic, to keep it lighthearted, to keep it upbeat, and I thought to myself, I guarantee you there is at least one person on your team who needs a genuine and candid conversation about suicide in a way where that judgment is not there, that shame and that blame is not there. And it's a conversation we can have where suicide, just like any other mental health concerns, are things that happen, things that occur that people experience. And having judgment and putting pressure on people to be better, to be stronger, whatever that means, it doesn't help in those situations. I've become very, very proud of myself that I have learned that asking for help is a huge sign of strength and never a sign of weakness. I've gotten to the point where I've realized that for me, suicidal thoughts are chronic. And that is something that I grapple with as a social worker, as a mental health professional. It is something that I grapple with because I feel like as a professional in this field, I should be better than that. I should be stronger and I shouldn't be feeling these things. But I know that this is caused by the mental illnesses that I experience, that I live with, and the experiences that I've had in my life. But it is something that I've learned to manage, something that I've learned that I can cope with skills and strategies and tools that I've learned. And though the thoughts are chronic, I am now able to tell myself when I need it, you need to reach out for help right now. I've been in recovery and treatment for over a decade, and not 6 months ago, I woke up my husband in the middle of the night. I shook him awake and I said, you need to take me to the emergency room right now. I don't feel safe. My thoughts are strong, the urges are strong. I need support. And the first thing he said when he looked at me and he woke up was, I am so proud of you. And that meant the world to me because I am struggling to be proud of myself, but hearing it from others that I care about shows me that really seeking support and help is one of the biggest signs of strength. And we need to be able to not only do that for ourselves, but foster that in other people. So if you're concerned about someone, you feel that they may be having suicidal thoughts or ideation, address it with them. Be kind and compassionate, but be direct. Bring the topic up. Don't shy away from it. If it's something that you experience or that you feel, remember that talking about it relieves that pressure and starts the conversation to getting help. And don't be afraid to ask someone or just to say, I can't do this by myself. I need support right now. It's a very difficult topic, as is everything to do with mental health. But we need to learn to combat that stigma and build conversations that are authentic, that are genuine, and that allow people to be open. Human beings are wired for connection. And so we need that when we're trying to face the obstacles that we have in our lives. And suicide prevention is that connection. Suicide prevention is also community care. Let's remember that therapy and individual treatment is important in preventing suicide, but the biggest part of it is having healthy communities. Suicide prevention is anti racism, it's combating homophobia and transphobia, it is access to food, it is housing security, access to education, all of the pieces that make thriving communities that are worth living in. That is also suicide prevention. So keep in mind that there's a lot you can do at the individual level. We can all be supporting one another and having open, honest conversations that allow people to get the support that they need. And we can also fight for healthy communities and stand up for the things that we believe in, that are elements that need to be in the way that people are going to have healthy lives that are worth living and communities that are worth existing in. So I hope that this was helpful for you. This is why I'm so open about my journey of recovery with mental illness and suicide, because I hope that it helps people understand better and helps people feel less alone. I'm so thankful I got to share this with you, and I hope that you can take away the piece of talking about it and having genuine, open, authentic conversations without shying away from the difficult and challenging human emotions that we all live every single day. Thank you so much.